most important figures in countercultural art. But the chances are you've never heard of him. Most of his work no longer exists and was painted illegally in the first place. King Robbo is a wanted man and protects his identity for fear of arrest.
He's a myth. He's a legend. It's like the outlaw Jesse James. Like, does he live? Is he dead? Where is he?
He's one of the pioneers of graffiti writing, a movement that champions freedom of expression and can be seen on street corners all over the world.
I do class myself as an artist, but also I can be a vandal at times, you know, when I let that little monster out of the cage.
This is Banksy, the enigmatic street artist who also came from graffiti, but has sold a popular and commercially successful version back to the world.
Counterculture's against hedge fund managers and bankers, you know, and they're the ones who don't buy Warhols and Picassos anymore, they buy Banksys.
But while Robbo's graffiti writing is reviled and criminalized, Banksy's street art is feted by celebrities and endorsed by the authorities.
There's someone saying, clean it off, and if it's a Banksy, leave it.
The differing treatment of Robbo and Banksy is symptomatic of a wider battle between street art and graffiti, and until recently, both men were a universe apart. That was until one of them committed an act deemed so hostile it shocked the graffiti world.
It's caused fights. Blood is drawn for the disrespect that it caused.
And started the most divisive art feud since Matisse and Picasso.
It is a graffiti war. He started it, and, you know, I'll carry on until I'm finished.
King Robbo is an international graffiti legend who's kept his identity secret from the authorities for over 25 years. A founding father of the British graf scene, he achieved infamy and respect in equal measure during the 80s, when his tag appeared all over London's trains and underground system.
This is the tag, the R, the O, the B, and the O. And there's my little devil tail that comes through it. This is your basic tag. Well, it's not a basic tag, that's the best tag you'll ever see. After a tag, you'll get the one-letter throw-up. Yeah, there we go. And it's all just one movement. It's to be done quickly, and it's a baby R. It's my baby. This was like my trademark in the 80s. It was on every train going.
When graffiti first came across the Atlantic, it was seen as another unwanted social ill imported from America.
Yo! Yeah.
For the teenage Robbo from a tough London council estate, bombing the trains was the way to raise a big middle finger to authority, as well as an opportunity to get his art seen by as many people as possible. An art gallery on wheels.
And for a graffiti writer, that's the ultimate goal, is to do the trains. If you've got a piece running across London, you've got hundreds, thousands of people who are going to see it. I mean, a piece of artwork running live for everyone to see. And there's nothing more exciting than that, you know?
You'd catch the last train to whatever yard you was going to. You'd check it all out, make sure there was no police creeping around or anything. Under the cover of darkness, usually very little light, you'd go to work doing your pieces. And you might do 20 or 30 trains. That's just bombing. And I was doing that for years. You live graffiti 24/7.
Yo!
Where you could get caught at any moment. You're living on the edge. It was about the adrenaline rush out of it. Better than drugs and drink, and that was my drugs and my drink. It was going out doing graffiti.
Yo!
Robbo's talent and ingenuity made him the undisputed graffiti king in London in the 80s and early 90s.
The reason Robbo has got so much respect is because he worked out how to get in pretty much every train yard in London, you know. Before anyone else was going to any of the yards, he was the one who worked out, you know, how to get in, how to get out, how to do it properly. He was the one who smashed it all city. Like, you can't really have any more respect for anyone, and anyone who's got the most remote idea about how graffiti works would automatically know that.
But at the height of his fame, Robbo retired from graffiti.
You know, I painted all the trains in London. I got up all over London. I was all city. I'd been all over Europe painting trains, and I'd been to America and painted trains in New York. You know, I couldn't really take it much further. It was sort of time to sort of grow up and be responsible. I couldn't afford to get arrested and go to prison, because who's gonna support my children when I'm in prison? I'm no good to them there, so that's when I'll give up.
All of his work gradually vanished from the walls and trains of London, except for this piece. Painted in 1985, underneath the British Transport Police headquarters on a barely accessible spot of Regent's Canal, it stood largely untouched, becoming the oldest piece of graffiti in London and a testament to Robbo's legendary status. Even in retirement, Robbo was revered by new writers coming onto the scene. But then one night, he met a young artist from Bristol called Banksy.
So I was at a place called the Dragon Bar down Old Street. I was introduced to a couple of guys, and they was like, well, it's such an honour to meet you and stuff. You know, they was paying respect. When I was introduced to Banksy, I went, oh, yeah, I've heard of you, mate. How you doing? And he went, well, I've not heard of you. Whenever I met someone, whether I heard of them or not, I always said I did hear of them. I never put no one down. And he dismissed me as a nobody, a nothing. So with that, I slapped him. I went, what, you ain't heard of me? But you won't forget me now, will you? And with that, he picked up his glasses and he ran off.
Ben Ine is a graffiti writer turned street artist who has worked with both Robbo and Banksy. He's aware their differences are more than just personal.
I knew of Robbo a long time before I met him. He was definitely one of the graffiti writers that I would kind of look up to. I've been out painting with Banksy a few times. Different doing street art than doing graffiti. Going out with Robbo, it'd be like a can of paint and just trying to do tags in places when people aren't looking. And then going out and painting stuff with Banksy was kind of, we'd work out where it was we were going to paint it, when we could get away with it. A lot more thought went into it, a lot more preparation.
Banksy didn't seem to make much of an impact as a graffiti writer, so he tried something different. Stencils. Sometimes of rats and human figures, sometimes of images borrowed from popular culture.
I think what Banksy does is clever. You know, it appeals to people, it's funny, it's kind of vaguely political, you know, and he presents it in a way that is acceptable. Any kind of subculture, people want to buy into that, and he's done it very well.
King Adds, the author of many books on graffiti and street art, has no doubts about the importance of Banksy's use of stencils.
Stencils have had an unbelievable effect on street art. If it wasn't for stencils, I wouldn't be here talking to a national broadcaster about what was essentially defined as vandalism. Banksy turned to stencils because it was quick, because it stopped him getting caught, and to quote him, it made a picture of a bunny look hard. Stencils took the street art from the street and put a price tag on it, made people want to invest in it.
But while Banksy's work gained mainstream popularity, respect from the graffiti world was not forthcoming.
Stencils is cheating.
Why did he say it was cheating to do a stencil?
It's just that old graffiti thing that real graffiti writers paint trains and real graffiti writers nick their paint and real graffiti writers do everything freehand. And using stencils is cheating. You know, street artists make work to sell work, to make money, to have shows in galleries, and all of that goes against what graffiti is all about. You know, graffiti is kind of about male ego and damage, and graffiti's got a lot of self-imposed rules.
However, Banksy doesn't play by graffiti's rules, and never did. In this book, published in 2009, Robbo told the story of the Dragon Bar fight for the first time, some 10 years after it happened. Shortly after the book came out, Banksy attacked Robbo's final surviving piece of work and turned the famous canal side piece into this.
I was angry that he'd crossed the line by wiping out a bit of history. He took an iconic piece and used it to his own gains. That's a no-no.
Banksy declined to be interviewed, but when asked to respond to Robbo's account, he said this. Banksy also supplied this photograph and says the canal piece was in such a bad state he didn't realize he was painting over a piece of London history. Whatever the truth, Banksy's act was considered sacrilegious by many in the graffiti world, and it brought King Robbo out of retirement.
I'm checking out where all the cameras are because obviously I don't want to be caught on CCTV. You can end up in prison over this.